Representatives from different countries are meeting in New York to discuss the developments in Afghanistan. The United Nations Security Council is holding an emergency meeting after the Taliban took Kabul. In this meeting, a little too late. What is the future of Afghanistan as of now? To answer all these questions, our correspondent Susan Teherani now joins us live from New York for more analysis. Susan, now we just heard envoys from France and the UK who all called for an end to violence in Afghanistan. The UN chief also said that the world must not abandon Afghanistan and urged the Taliban to exercise restraint. How are these comments being perceived as of now?
You know, one of the aims of the United Nations Security Council meeting was to really create a visibility for what's happening in Afghanistan right now and the dire humanitarian situation taking place there. And while this particular meeting really isn't aimed at really finding a political situation to a crumbling catastrophe that's happening in Afghanistan, the humanitarian aspect of that situation is front and center. The situation for women and girls is front and center, but also there is humanitarian aid on Afghan's borders that's ready to go into the country to help the millions of people in the country, not only battling what the Taliban has created, but also food insecurity and COVID as well. And that aid is not getting to the Afghan people. So that's something that needs to be coordinated among UN member states. But I think that right now even member states are trying to figure out how to deal with this ever-evolving situation in Afghanistan, and we see statement after statement coming from these representatives. But I think at the end of the day, as the world
Susan,
watches...
we're just getting the Chinese envoy to the UN who's addressing the meeting as of now. Let's cut across.
That suits its national conditions in order to lay the foundation to achieve lasting peace in the country. In the last 20 years, terrorist organizations such as Islamic State, Al-Qaeda and ATM have gathered and developed in Afghanistan, posing a serious threat to international and regional peace and security. Afghanistan must never again become a haven for terrorists. This is the bottom line that must be held firmly for any future political solution in Afghanistan. We hope that the Taliban in Afghanistan will earnestly deliver on their commitments and make a clean break with the terrorist organizations. All countries should fulfill their obligations in accordance with international law and Security Council resolutions, work with each other in combating terrorism in all its forms and manifestations, and take resolute actions to prevent terrorist organizations such as Islamic State, Al-Qaeda and ATM from taking advantage of this chaos. As we speak, the humanitarian situation in Afghanistan is very dire. Humanitarian assistance and epidemic prevention and control are under tremendous pressure. The international community should scale up humanitarian assistance to Afghanistan and its neighbors that have received a large number of displaced persons from Afghanistan to help alleviate the regional humanitarian crisis. The relevant parties should ensure that the work of international humanitarian relief agencies can continue unhindered. The international community should also continue to help Afghanistan and its neighbors to control the pandemic as soon as possible. President, the chaos currently in Afghanistan is directly related to the hasty withdrawal of foreign troops. Relevant countries should earnestly deliver the commitment to support peace, reconciliation and reconstruction in Afghanistan, and play a constructive role on the issue of Afghanistan. On the basis of respecting the leadership of Afghanistan and relevant efforts of the neighboring countries in the political, security, development, humanitarian and anti-narcotics fields, constructive assistance to Afghanistan should be provided on a continuing basis. A few council members said in their statement that they wish to see that greater roles played by Afghan's neighbors and regional countries. We learned that some regional countries and Afghan's neighbors had made requests to participate in today's meeting. It is regrettable that their requests were not granted. For a long time, UNAMA mission has played an important role in supporting the peaceful reconstruction of Afghanistan. Given the current situation on the ground that has undergone major changes, we hope that the Secretary-General will make proper arrangements to ensure the safety of personnel of the mission. We also look forward to the Secretary-General presenting practical and actionable views and recommendations to the Security Council as soon as possible on the future UN presence in Afghanistan. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of China for his statement. I shall now make a statement in my capacity as the representative of India.
We still have our correspondent Susan Teherani live with us from New York on this broadcast. Susan, we just heard the Chinese envoy to the UN address the gathering. Rather conflicting words coming from China when they say that they're calling for an end to terrorism and violence in Afghanistan. And Susan, we're going to go back to the meeting as of now. We have T.S. Tirumurthy addressing the meeting.
We have witnessed dramatic changes in the situation. We have also seen very unfortunate scenes at the Hamid Karzai International Airport in Kabul. There is widespread panic among the people. Women and children are in distress. Incidents of firing have been reported from the city, including at the airport. While the security situation remains precarious, a grave humanitarian crisis is unfolding. We have heard urgent appeals from all quarters, including from the Secretary General. It is time for the international community, in particular this Council, to act and ensure an immediate cessation of violence and contain any possible crisis and mitigate its consequences. As a neighbor of Afghanistan, as a friend of its people, the current situation prevailing in the country is of great concern to us in India. Afghan men, women, and children are living under a constant state of fear. They are uncertain about their future. Everyone is concerned about the increasing violations of the fundamental rights of the Afghan citizens. Afghans are worried about whether their right to live with dignity would be respected. There are many unanswered questions. We hope that the situation stabilizes soon and the parties concerned address the humanitarian and security issues. We also hope that there is an inclusive dispensation which represents all sections of Afghan society. Voices of Afghan women, aspirations of Afghan children, and the rights of minorities must be respected. A broader representation would help the arrangement gain more acceptability and legitimacy. The current situation in Afghanistan has numerous challenges. However, there are a few opportunities. If there is a zero tolerance for terrorism in all its forms and manifestations, and it is ensured that the territory of Afghanistan is not used by terrorist groups to threaten or attack any other country, then Afghanistan's neighbors and the region would feel safer. The Secretary General has underlined this unequivocally just now. Afghanistan has already seen enough bloodshed in the past. It is time for the international community to come together unitedly, rising above any partisan interests, to support the people of Afghanistan in their desire for peace, stability, and security in the country, and to enable all Afghans, including women, children, and minorities, to live in peace and dignity. India has contributed significantly in recent years to the development of the country. In this context, Indian development projects has been undertaken in critical areas of power, water, road, healthcare, education, agriculture, and capacity building. India's emphasis has been on the welfare and the well-being of the people of Afghanistan. Before the current crisis unfolded, India had ongoing development projects in every one of the 34 provinces of Afghanistan. As underscored by Council members, we need to continue to support the robust work of UNAMA and ensure their safety. We call upon the parties concerned to maintain law and order, ensure the safety and security of all concerned, including UN, diplomatic, and consular personnel, and observe human rights and international humanitarian law in all circumstances in Afghanistan. Thank you. I now resume my function as President of the Council. There are no more names inscribed on the list of speakers. I'll now adjourn the meeting so that the Council can continue its discussion on the subject in closed consultations. I kindly ask all observers to exit the chamber upon the adjournment of this meeting. The meeting is adjourned.
Now, correspondent Susan Tehrani is still with us live from New York. Susan, that was, of course, the UNSC chair T.S. Siramurthy speaking, and the meet has wrapped up. What kind of aid can we expect to be disbursed for those displaced after the meeting concludes?
Well, we'll have to see the kind of aid that the UN mission in the United Nations Special Mission in Afghanistan is going to allocate. But we really, when we hear not only India's permanent representative talk, but all of these ambassadors, one after the other, speak at the Security Council, we see how much the international community was invested in Afghanistan and trying to really, bring this country together, and how fast really we saw the toppling of the Afghan government in the hands of the Taliban, and how the situation is developing and deteriorating hour by hour. As the meeting comes to an end, I think we're going to have to see, if some representatives are going to be speaking to us here at the stakeout, and we'll get a better understanding of what kind of aid the Afghan people should be expecting from the United Nations. But as far as the United Nations Secretary General was concerned, the United Nations humanitarian mission is going to stay in Afghanistan. It's going to stay its course, and it's going to quote-unquote adjust to the political situation there. Afghan women and children are going to be a priority. I think what we got out of this meeting at the end of the day was that the situation is deteriorating, but the international community in one way or the other will have to adjust to the situation on the ground, whatever that may be.
Right, Susan, stay with us. We also have our correspondent Mariam Wardak joining us live from Washington for the latest. Mariam, thanks so much for joining us. Now, we heard envoys from France and the UK calling for an end to violence in Afghanistan, and the UN chief Guterres also said that the world must not abandon Afghanistan. What do you make of these statements?
I think these statements are rightfully called upon, and I hope other nations also stand up demanding such. However, I am quite disappointed because although these nations are making statements at the UN, I am finding out that Kabul airport is not allowing commercial flights because they're trying to evacuate all of the foreigners militarily. So this is quite disappointing, especially for those who want to leave the country. I hope that other nations stand with this and make sure that all the rights of women and minorities and the children's dreams are able to come true.
Mariam, stay with us. I'd like to take my next question from Susan. Susan, there's been a lot of criticism right now about the Biden administration and its response. We've heard a lot of criticism coming for President Biden as of now, who seems to be enjoying himself at Camp David while Afghanistan is falling apart. What do you make of that? Right, coming back to you, Mariam, we'll get Susan back on the line soon. Now, the Afghan envoy made an impassioned appeal where he said that the Taliban is known to break its commitments, and he raised concern for the women and girls of Afghanistan. What's their future at this point?
His concern is rightfully there based on the historical aspects of what we've witnessed. The narrative may have changed, but for all of us observing Afghanistan, it's quite important to make sure that the pressure is there, especially if the Taliban are looking for legitimacy.
Right. What do you make of the future of children in Afghanistan at this point? There's a humanitarian crisis underway, and the UN chief also called for the world to keep its focus and its eyes on Afghanistan and urged the Taliban for restraint. But can the Taliban be trusted to keep its promises?
I think any group that has acted in violence cannot be given the benefit of the doubt. We have to observe them and hold them responsible. If they want to be active allies for any international party. They must not commit to any more violent acts. Ceasefire is obviously imminent. There are information that the Taliban are going around Kabul, disarming former government officials and also asking young girls not to attend schools and to apply the burqa. So there is a disconnect between the Taliban military commanders on the ground versus what the Taliban political actors are saying in Doha.
Right. Now, Mariam, we also have seen that China and Russia have backed the Taliban's takeover, and the Russian Foreign Ministry says that the situation in Kabul is stabilizing and that the Taliban have started to restore public order. How will the support of Western powers such as Russia and, of course, China, on the other hand, embolden the Taliban?
Well, there are so many political plays at here. The vacuum of United States needs to be filled, and I'm sure that Russia and China are eager to take that, especially with the tensions that they hold with the United States. I'm not sure if Afghanistan is in the best interest of Russia or China, or if this is just a play for a larger geopolitical game.
Right, Mariam, thank you so much for all your inputs, and thank you for joining us on WION at this hour. WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.